What if I told you that almost everything you've been taught about life, what about reality itself, is a lie? Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, a deliberate lie. You were born into a world where you were trained to believe in things you could see, touch, measure, and control. You were told that matter is solid, that time moves in one direction, that effort equals reward, and that reality is something happening to you. But none of this is fundamentally true. It's a version of truth, a filtered, diluted projection of something much bigger, far more powerful, and infinitely more mysterious. You've been conditioned to see the world through a lens of limitation, a lens that keeps you in survival mode, a lens that hides the actual mechanisms that control your life. And the most dangerous part of this illusion? You didn't even realize you were wearing it. From the moment you took your first breath, you were handed a script. That script came from your parents, your culture, your schools, your media, your religion. It taught you what to fear, what to desire, what to expect, and what to never question. It gave you labels, boy or girl, rich or poor, worthy or not, and then it made sure you believed those labels were absolute, final, inescapable. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if the world you see is not reality, but your personal reflection of energy in motion? What if your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are not just private mental habits, but the actual source code of the physical world around you? This isn't fantasy, it isn't hype, it's the hidden structure of existence itself. And once you see it, nothing will ever be the same again. Right now, you're surrounded by a field of infinite energy, vibrating, shifting, constantly responding to what you broadcast into it. Your body, your bank account, your relationships, your opportunities, they're all crystallized forms of energy echoing back your internal frequency. That means reality isn't fixed, it's reactive. It's plastic. It bends around your vibration whether you know it or not. But here's the catch. 99% of people go their entire lives without ever realizing this. They live and die inside a simulation they never learned to control. A game where they follow someone else's rules, fight someone else's battles, and chase goals that were never truly their own. They beg for change, pray for miracles, blame fate or luck or other people for what they lack. All the while, the actual rules of reality, the laws that govern energy, creation, and transformation, remain hidden in plain sight. Now ask yourself this. If there were ancient laws that allowed you to command reality instead of chase it, why weren't you taught them? Why do they never mention this in school? Why do mainstream systems mock or ignore those who speak about frequency, vibration, polarity, mental causation? The answer is brutally simple. Because if you knew the truth about your power, you would become uncontrollable. You wouldn't need permission to create wealth. You wouldn't need external approval to feel worthy. You wouldn't fear death, failure, rejection, or loss the way they need you to. You would become sovereign, magnetic, dangerous to the systems that profit from your ignorance. This is why the ancient teachings were hidden, encoded in symbols, disguised in myth, locked away in secret societies, not because the laws don't work, but because they do, because they always have. And at the center of these teachings is something that most people have never heard of, but that holds the key to unlocking everything. The Kybalion. Not a religion, not a philosophy, a system, a user manual for how energy actually behaves in this universe. The Kybalion is a book based on the timeless principles of Hermeticism, e.g., teachings that originated thousands of years ago and were passed down through mystery schools, Egyptian temples, and esoteric circles. It outlines 7 universal laws, 7 energetic forces that govern all creation, from the movement of galaxies to the thoughts in your head. These laws are not beliefs. They're not theories. They're not woo-woo suggestions to try on when you're feeling spiritual. They are the invisible framework that shapes every single outcome in your life. Whether you're aware of them or not, they are active, constant, unyielding. Like gravity, they don't need your belief to function. But the moment you become aware of them, the moment you start working with them instead of against them, your entire reality begins to rewire itself. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly attract abundance, love, confidence, and opportunity, while others struggle despite working harder, this is why. It's not luck, it's not genetics, it's not privilege, it's alignment. Alignment with the laws that shape reality behind the scenes. And the painful truth is, you've probably been working against these laws your entire life. Every time you held on to a limiting belief, you disrupted the law of mentalism. Every time you compared your life to others, you broke harmony with the law of correspondence. Every time you lived in fear, you lowered your vibration and corrupted the very field you were trying to influence. And the worst part, no one ever told you you were doing it. They told you to be nice, to work hard, to stay humble, to pray and wait, but they never taught you to master your vibration. They never taught you that your dominant frequency is the only thing reality is listening to. Now, imagine what your life could look like if you did. Imagine walking into a room and feeling energy shift in your favor. Imagine money, synchronicity, connection, and inspiration showing up because of who you are, not because of what you do. Imagine never again begging life to give you something it's already coded inside you to create. That is the power of the Kybalion when you apply it. Not read it, not quote it, apply it. Because understanding these laws intellectually is not enough. The world is full of people who know spiritual principles but still live in fear, scarcity, and self-doubt. The real magic happens when you live these truths, when you embody them, when you become the frequency you once tried to chase. This is the invitation now in front of you, to stop waiting, to stop hoping, to stop asking for permission. You've been given the keys, the map, the laws. Now it's up to you to claim your reality from the inside out. Because once you see the mechanism behind the illusion, once you realize that what you call reality is nothing more than structured vibration responding to your state, you can never unsee it. The veil is torn, and the game finally begins. What if I told you that the truth about your power was never lost? It was hidden, not erased, not destroyed, just buried under centuries of fear, manipulation, and control. And not because it was untrue, not because it was dangerous in a destructive sense, but because it makes you untouchable. This is the truth about the Kybalion. I've opened a book that doesn't just teach you how the universe works, but how to bend it to your will. A manual that, if truly understood, dismantles the entire illusion of power others hold over you. And that's exactly why it was kept from you. They couldn't let you know this. Because the moment you see through the illusion, the moment you understand that you are not a pawn but the player, not the servant but the architect, you stop obeying the invisible script. You stop chasing what you were programmed to want, and you start designing what you were born to create. The Kybalion wasn't written for the masses. It wasn't meant for comfort. It was a weapon of spiritual clarity, disguised as a book. It traces its origins to the teachings of ancient Egypt and Greece, to the legendary figure Hermes Trismegistus, a being so revered he was said to be a fusion of the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes. But don't let the myth distract you. Behind the symbols lies pure power. The Hermetic Principles, preserved for centuries by hidden schools of initiates, are not vague spiritual ideas. They are universal codes. They explain why reality behaves the way it does, and more importantly, they reveal how to command it consciously. The Kybalion itself wasn't published until 1908, but its content is far older. It distilled the sacred Hermetic Principles into a framework simple enough to study, yet deep enough to challenge every belief you've ever had about life, control, and creation. It's a book that speaks in riddles if your mind isn't ready, but speaks like a mirror when you are. And that's no accident. The truth has always traveled in disguise. The deeper the wisdom, the quieter its voice. The most powerful knowledge doesn't scream, it whispers. It hides in plain sight, wrapped in metaphor and misdirection, waiting for the one ready to see through the veil. Because if the wrong person holds it, not in someone still trapped in ego, fear, or greed, it becomes a tool of manipulation, but in the hands of someone awake, it becomes liberation. So why was this hidden from you? Why were you taught about gravity but not vibration? about facts but never frequencies? Why were you given 10 years of math but not a single day on how your own consciousness shapes reality? Because the moment you understand these laws, the spell breaks. You stop being easy to market to, easy to scare, easy to control. You stop playing the role they assigned you, the struggler, the good citizen, the anxious consumer, always chasing something you were never supposed to catch. You see the game, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Look closer at how history unfolds. Whenever a teaching threatens the existing structure of power, it gets rewritten, buried, or demonized. The church burned manuscripts that hinted at divinity within. Empires labeled mystics as heretics. Even modern institutions still treat ancient metaphysics like fantasy, while quantum physics quietly proves the same principles that mystics were killed for. Coincidence? Or control? You've been conditioned to dismiss the invisible, to doubt what can't be measured, to trust systems that have a vested interest in keeping you predictable, programmable, and passive. But the Kybalion doesn't care about those systems. It speaks directly to the one place those systems can't reach: your inner knowing, your resonance, that feeling deep in your gut that says, something about this is true, even if I was never allowed to believe it. Because this isn't just spiritual theory. These principles are active right now. They are shaping your life, whether you know them or not. Ignorance doesn't protect you. If you're unaware of gravity, you still fall. And if you're unaware of mentalism, of correspondence, of vibration, you still live inside their laws. 1912. You just don't know why you feel powerless. That's why awakening to the Kybalion is so destabilizing. It doesn't give you power. It reveals you already had it. It doesn't promise miracles. It explains them. It's not about belief, mechanics. It's about mechanics. Just like electricity, it works whether you believe in it or not. Just like a magnet doesn't need permission to attract metal, your frequency doesn't need permission to attract experience. It just does, always, without fail. The deeper you go into these teachings, the more you realize everything is energy. Thought is energy. Emotion is energy. And energy is obedient, not to your wishes, not to your morals, but to your dominant state of being. That's the part nobody tells you. Reality doesn't care what you say you want, it reflects what you truly are. And the Kybalion gives you the blueprint to change what you are at the most fundamental level, your state of consciousness. So why weren't you given this manual at birth? Why weren't you shown how your mind programs the field, how your beliefs sculpt matter, how your imagination isn't just pretend, but is literally the creative workshop of the universe? Because a society of awakened creators is ungovernable. A collective of sovereign beings tuned into their divine design doesn't need a savior, a system, or a supervisor. It doesn't panic in fear. It doesn't blindly obey. It doesn't depend. And that terrifies those whose power relies on your unconscious participation. That's why this knowledge is forbidden. Not because it's dark, not because it's evil, but because it breaks chains, because it dissolves illusions, because it reminds you that nothing outside of you has more authority than what lives within you. The Kybalion doesn't ask for your devotion. It asks for your awakening. It doesn't require you to worship. It requires you to remember. And what you remember changes everything. The truth that the ancients knew, the mystics whispered, and the rulers feared is this: reality is not happening to you, it is happening from you. And now that you're beginning to see that, you have a choice. You can put this back on the shelf of interesting ideas, or you can let it shatter the false world you were given, and start building the one that was always yours to command. You've been told your thoughts are private, that they live quietly inside your head, drifting in and out like clouds, invisible, harmless, forgettable. But this is the first and most dangerous illusion, because, in truth, your thoughts are not silent, they're not passive, they are the architects of your entire reality. Every word you speak, every emotion you feel, every belief you carry, it all begins with a thought, and that thought isn't just some abstract mental echo, it is energy, it vibrates, it expands. It instructs the field around you. The law of mentalism is the first and most foundational Hermetic law, and it shatters everything you thought you knew about how reality works. This law doesn't ask you to believe in anything. It simply reveals what's always been true. The universe, at its core, is a mental construct. All is mind. Let that sink in. Everything you see, touch, hear, taste, every object, event, and interaction in your life is the crystallization of thought. Not just your thoughts, but the thoughts of consciousness itself. The All, as described in Hermetic wisdom, is the infinite, intelligent mind behind all manifestation. It's not a god outside of you. It's the awareness within you. It thinks, and through that thinking, reality comes into being. The law of mentalism teaches that nothing exists without first existing in mind. No building was ever built without first being imagined. No invention was ever created without first being conceived. No identity, no belief system, no version of you exists without first being formed in thought. This isn't just esoteric poetry. It's backed by science. Quantum physics has already proven what the mystics knew thousands of years ago. Subatomic particles do not behave like solid matter. They exist in a state of potential, pure probability, until they are observed. When attention is given, when consciousness focuses, the wave collapses into a fixed form. Reality doesn't simply exist and wait for you to discover it. It is born the moment you look. The observer affects the observed. You are not separate from the universe you perceive. You are co-creating it in every moment through your perception and belief. So what does this mean for your life? It means that your outer world is not reacting to effort, status, or chance. It is reflecting the dominant ideas you hold as truth. If you believe the world is dangerous, you will magnetize experiences that validate that fear. If you believe you are unworthy, the field will mirror back rejection, limitation, and missed opportunity. This is not punishment, it is precision. The universe is not moral, it is mathematical. It reflects what you impress upon it. Your thoughts are commands, ND2, and they are always being executed, whether you mean to or not. Consider this. The thoughts you repeat become beliefs. Those beliefs form your identity. That identity determines your vibration, and that vibration is what reality bends itself around. Most people try to change their reality by manipulating symptoms. They switch jobs, end relationships, change cities, but nothing shifts at the root. Why? Because the frequency doesn't change. The thought behind the experience stays the same. The universe simply reshuffles the surface while delivering the exact same energetic pattern underneath. This is why mentalism is the root of all transformation. If you master this law, every other law bends with it. But if you ignore it, no amount of action will set you free, because thought is the seed. Everything else is fruit, and most people are trying to change the fruit while planting the same cursed seed every single day. It's not enough to think positive. You've probably already figured that out. Surface thoughts, the ones you affirm or repeat a few times a day, are only a fraction of what's shaping your world. The real power lies in your subconscious thought loops. The beliefs etched into your nervous system, the images you replay when no one's watching. That's where your vibration is truly set. That's what the law of mentalism responds to. So when you think, "I'll never have enough money," even casually, you're not just expressing a fear, you're giving the field a blueprint. When you say, "People always leave me," you're not just venting. You're coding your experience. Every thought is an energetic decree, and the universe, faithful, neutral, responsive, mirrors it back without judgment. But here's the gift hidden inside the weight of that responsibility. If you created it, you can uncreate it. If your current life is a reflection of unconscious thought, then your future can be sculpted by conscious thought. You can rewrite the script, you can imagine new outcomes, install new truths, and embody a different identity. And when you do that with clarity, consistency, and emotional charge, the field must respond. Mentalism isn't passive. It's not about daydreaming or wishful thinking. It is active creation. The same way an architect envisions a building before a single brick is laid, you must become the architect of your inner world. You must hold the vision of your new self so strongly that reality has no choice but to comply. Not because you're manipulating matter, but because you're tuning into the version of reality where that vision already exists. There are infinite versions of you right now: the rich you, the loved you, the powerful you, the peaceful you, and the anxious, broke, frustrated you. They all exist as energetic possibilities in the quantum field. The only reason you're experiencing one version over the others is because your dominant thought pattern is tuned to that channel. Change the thought, change the frequency, change the version of you that comes forward. You are the projector. The world is the screen. Stop trying to fix the screen. Fix the film. Fix the story. Fix the thoughts. This is why silence, meditation, and self-inquiry are not luxuries, they are technologies. When you still your mind, you begin to observe the code that's running your life. When you ask, "Is this thought even mine?" you start reclaiming authorship. When you pause before reacting, you open the space for a new pattern to emerge. Mentalism gives you the master key, but you must use it. You must become ruthless about the mental diet you consume. You must question every belief you inherited. You must visualize not to escape, but to create. You must speak not to impress others, but to impress upon the field the reality you choose to live in. Because whether you accept it or not, you are already casting spells with your thoughts. Every sentence you mutter, every complaint you repeat, every daydream you indulge, 2000 pers. It all creates. The question is not, is this real? The question is, do I want this to continue being real? There is no neutral thought. There is no meaningless mental loop. You are either reinforcing your old reality or commanding a new one into form. You're not here to be a passive thinker. You are here to be a conscious creator. And once you remember that all is mind, not metaphorically but literally, you stop begging for reality to change. You start programming it from the inside out. You stop chasing energy. And you become the source. Your entire life is a mirror, not a metaphorical one, not a poetic symbol, but an exact, energetic reflection of what you carry within. If you've ever wondered why certain patterns keep repeating, why the same relationships show up wearing different faces, why the same financial struggles seem to circle back, no matter how much effort you apply, the answer isn't out there, it's inside. What you experience externally is not happening to you, it's happening through you. The world is not separate from your mind. The law of correspondence makes that impossible. As within, so without. As above, so below. You've heard it before, maybe in passing, maybe as a spiritual slogan printed on a t-shirt. But this isn't a quote, it's a cosmic equation. It's telling you that there is no such thing as randomness. Every single event in your life, every coincidence, every moment of joy, every heartbreak, every loss, is a correspondence, a reflection, a perfect energetic echo of your inner state, projected outward into time, space, and matter. You are the microcosm, and life is the macrocosm. Your thoughts are not isolated, private bubbles floating harmlessly inside your head. They are frequencies. And those frequencies ripple outward into the unified field of energy that connects everything. This field doesn't care about appearances. It doesn't care about what you say you want. It responds only to what you are. Your internal architecture, the beliefs you carry, the assumptions you never question, the emotional patterns that run on autopilot, all of that forms the blueprint. Your outer life. That's just the construction site built according to that blueprint. The law of correspondence doesn't discriminate between good and bad, right or wrong. It simply reflects. If the mirror shows you something distorted, the answer isn't to scream at the reflection, it's to look at the original image. Look around you. Your relationships are a feedback loop of your self-worth. Your finances reflect your deepest beliefs about value, safety, and freedom. Your health mirrors the emotional stories your body has been forced to store when your mind couldn't process them. None of this is punishment, it's feedback. Life is showing you what you truly believe, not what you think you believe. Imagine your consciousness as a projector, and reality as the screen. Whatever film is running through your subconscious becomes the scene you live out. You can scream at the screen all you want, but nothing will change until you edit the reel. That's why self-awareness isn't optional. It's the control panel. And if you don't become conscious of your internal code, you will be ruled by it in the external world, mistaking the projection for fate. Have you ever seen a fractal? A pattern within a pattern within a pattern, repeating endlessly no matter how far you zoom in or out? That's not just visual art. That's the architecture of your reality. Your internal world is a fractal of the cosmic design. The same principles that govern galaxies govern your nervous system. The same balance of chaos and order that shapes storms and stars is playing out in your thoughts and emotions. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe localized in human form. Your emotions act like tuning forks. When you hold on to guilt, life echoes it back through experiences that make you feel unworthy. When you radiate gratitude, the universe finds ways to match that signal. Not because it's judging you, but because it's mirroring you. Always. In every moment. Even now. If you've ever tried to fix your life by rearranging the external, by changing jobs, partners, cities, routines, only to find yourself face to face with the same frustration wearing new clothes, this is why. You can't outrun your frequency. You can only transmute it. Until you shift your inner state, the law of correspondence will keep bringing you more of what matches your unresolved code. That's not cruelty. That's precision. The mirror doesn't lie, but it also doesn't punish. It just reflects. So, if you're willing to see it clearly, without denial, without justification, without victimhood, the mirror becomes your greatest ally. It will show you exactly where to work, where to heal, where to choose differently, not from shame, but from sovereignty. One of the most profound truths about this law is that it doesn't just apply to individuals, it applies to civilizations. Society itself is a macrocosmic mirror of our collective consciousness. The violence, division, greed, and despair you see in the world are not isolated events. They are the reflection of billions of unresolved traumas, beliefs, and emotional patterns echoing out through governments, institutions, and media. Change doesn't happen from the top down. It happens from the inside out. That's why revolutions that don't start in consciousness always recreate the same systems under new names. You cannot overthrow an empire of fear with fear. You have to change the frequency. You have to change the blueprint. You have to become the correspondence you wish to experience. Look into your relationships. Are you constantly attracting people who dismiss you, betray you, or abandon you? That's not because you're broken. It's because part of you still believes love equals pain, or that safety comes from pleasing others, or that your worth depends on sacrifice. Until that inner narrative is rewritten, the same characters will keep showing up, not to hurt you, but to reveal you, to mirror what needs your attention. Your body is a correspondence too. Chronic symptoms, tension, fatigue, UIs, they're not just biological events, they're messages. Your body is the most honest feedback loop you have. It will whisper, then speak, then scream, until you listen, until you realize that suppressed emotion becomes inflammation, that stored grief becomes fatigue, that unspoken truth becomes dis-ease. But here's the gift. Once you understand this law, you gain access to a power most people never touch. The power to change your outer world by shifting your inner terrain. The power to move through life like a master sculptor, reshaping form not through force, but through frequency. The power to look into the mirror of life and, instead of reacting, reprogram. You don't fix a dirty mirror by wiping the glass from the outside. You cleanse the lens from within. You elevate your thoughts, tend to your beliefs, and regulate your emotional home. You stop trying to control outcomes and start curating input. Your job isn't to manipulate the reflection. Your job is to become the version of yourself that naturally produces a different reflection. This is not wishful thinking. This is mechanics. This is alignment. And the law of correspondence doesn't wait for belief. It's already working. The only question is, are you working with it or against it? If you want to change your life, stop asking, what's wrong out there, and start asking, what's true in here? That shift alone changes everything. Because when your inner world becomes coherent, focused, and vibrationally aligned, the outer world has no choice but to echo that signal. It must, it's law. And now that you know that, you can never again pretend that the mirror is random. You can never again pretend that you are powerless in the face of reflection. You are the source. You are the cause. You are the blueprint being broadcast into form, moment by moment. So the next time life throws you a situation you didn't want, ask, what is this showing me about what I still carry? What is this revealing about what I believe, expect, or suppress? And then go inward. That's where the true reality shift begins. The law of correspondence is not something to master, it's something to realize, because once you do, you stop reacting to the world, and start recreating it, from the inside out, from the blueprint up, from you. Nothing in the universe is still, not one atom, not one breath, not one moment. Everything is in constant motion, oscillating, pulsating, vibrating. This is not a poetic metaphor or spiritual exaggeration. It's a scientific, measurable truth. Every object you see, every sound you hear, every thought you think, every feeling you feel, all of it is vibrating at a particular frequency. And that frequency is not neutral. It is a signal, a command, a magnetic field. It either draws things in or pushes them away. It either harmonizes with the reality you want or it cancels it out completely. The law of vibration is the great secret behind why some people seem to manifest effortlessly, while others struggle for years with little to show. It's not about how hard you try. It's not about how badly you want it. The universe doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to frequency. You don't get what you wish for, you get what you are, vibrationally, energetically, emotionally. And what you are is not defined by your conscious affirmations. It's written deep into your subconscious and echoed through every cell of your body. Most people believe their emotions are responses to reality. They think, I feel anxious because I don't have enough money, or I feel lonely because no one truly loves me. But that's the illusion. In truth, your emotions are not reacting to life, anyone, they're shaping it. The anxiety doesn't come because money is missing. The money is missing because anxiety is present. The emotion is the frequency. And the frequency is the blueprint that reality follows without question. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you're on the 92.3 FM frequency, you're not going to hear what's being broadcast on 105.7 FM, no matter how much you want to. You can scream, cry, beg, or pray, but unless you change the dial, you will never access the other station. Reality is the same. If you're tuned to the vibration of fear, guilt, scarcity, or shame, you're only going to hear the music of struggle. You're going to attract people, events, and circumstances that resonate with that station. Not because you're cursed, and not because you're unlucky, because you're aligned to a frequency that doesn't support the life you say you want. Here's the deeper layer most never realize. Your vibration isn't just made up of your thoughts, it's made up of your body. Your nervous system is the transmitter, your subconscious beliefs are the code, and your emotional state is the fuel that sends the signal out. That's why you can visualize success every morning, say all the right affirmations, and even take massive action, but still sabotage yourself without knowing why. Because your subconscious might still be carrying the vibrational signature of trauma, of betrayal, of ancestral scarcity passed down like a hidden virus through your DNA. You were encoded before you ever had a chance to question the program. From the age of 0 to 7, your brain was in a theta state, highly suggestible, emotionally absorbent, without filters. During those years, you weren't observing life. You were downloading it. Every argument, every criticism, every emotional absence became part of your subconscious nervous system blueprint. And once it's there, it vibrates, day and night, silently dictating what you feel safe receiving and what you unconsciously repel. You might say you want love, but if love was never safe in childhood, your body will vibrate with resistance when it gets close. You might crave wealth, but if your nervous system was conditioned to equate money with stress, conflict, or loss, you'll push it away without realizing it. You're not broken, you're coded. And until you change the code, your vibration will keep broadcasting an energetic message that blocks the very things you desire most. Now pause. Think about your current life. What keeps repeating? What always seems just out of reach? Where do you feel stuck, even though you're trying everything? That's not random, it's resonance. And it's telling you the truth about your dominant frequency more clearly than any affirmation ever could. But here's the good news. Your vibration is not fixed, it's fluid, it's programmable. It can shift in a second if you learn how to feel differently on purpose. That's the key most spiritual teachings gloss over. This isn't just about thinking new thoughts, it's about feeling new feelings. It's about generating emotional energy that aligns with the version of reality you want to live in. Because emotion is energy in motion, and that motion creates magnetic momentum. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the field. That's why gratitude is so powerful, not because it's morally good, but because it's energetically expansive. That's why anger and shame keep you stuck, not because they're wrong, but because they compress your field and anchor you to a reality you're trying to outgrow. So, how do you change your vibration? It starts by recognizing what you're broadcasting right now, not what you say, not what you post on social media, but what you feel when no one's watching. That feeling, that underlying emotional frequency, is the signal the universe is tuning into, and you can shift it at any time. You can breathe differently, you can move your body, you can recall a moment of deep love or confidence. You can visualize a future memory and install the feeling of it into your nervous system before it happens. You can override the old emotional codes by consciously creating new ones. That's not delusion, that's energetic reprogramming. And when you do it consistently, your entire field begins to shift. People notice. Opportunities arrive. Synchronicities unfold. And it's not magic, it's magnetism. It's your new vibration echoing out into the quantum field and pulling in experiences that match your new state. Imagine walking into a room and shifting the energy just by existing. Imagine attracting aligned relationships, financial abundance, and creative inspiration, not by chasing, but by vibrating. This is not theory, it's reality for those who understand and apply the law of vibration. Your frequency is your fate. Not because the universe is judging you, but because it's reflecting you. The field does not respond to effort. It responds to state. It doesn't speak English. It speaks vibration. So you must become fluent in the language of energy. You must become the kind of person who feels free before the freedom arrives, who feels loved before the lover appears, who feels abundant before the money lands. Because once you vibrate as if it's already yours, the universe has no choice but to match your signal. That is the law, and it cannot be broken. You've been trained to fear contrast, conditioned to think in absolutes, to see life as a battle between good and evil, light and dark, success and failure, love and rejection. But what if none of these were truly separate? What if everything you've labeled as opposite was actually the same thing, just expressed at different degrees? The law of polarity doesn't just explain this, it demands that you confront it. Because until you understand how this law works, you will keep swinging between extremes, never realizing you're dancing on a single line of energy, moving back and forth between the same force. Simply inverted. Everything in this universe is dual, hot and cold, joy and sorrow, birth and death, chaos and order. But dual doesn't mean separate. It means two expressions of one principle. Love and hate, not opposites, just varying degrees of connection and resistance. Confidence and insecurity, not opposites. Just different frequencies of the same self-awareness. Success and failure, not enemies, just shifting expressions of growth. Your mind has been conditioned to divide, to label, to fragment reality into black and white. But polarity is a spectrum, not a war. It's a sliding scale. And here's the most liberating truth. If you can locate yourself anywhere on the scale, you can move. The law of polarity tells you that every emotion, every experience, every outcome contains its own opposite, hidden within it. That means your fear contains courage, just unactivated. Your depression contains hope, but covered in dust. Your chaos contains order, but it hasn't been tuned. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reveal the exact portal through which your power is hiding. But most people don't know how to work with this law. They resist it. They react. When sadness shows up, they bury it. When fear arises, they run. When anger explodes, they suppress it or shame it. But what they don't realize is that by denying the uncomfortable end of the spectrum, they also block themselves from the transformative side. You can't selectively mute your emotions. You can't numb the darkness and still expect to feel the light. So what does it mean to master polarity? It means you stop reacting to energy and start redirecting it. It means you recognize that every negative feeling is not a dead end, but raw material, fuel waiting to be transmuted. This is where most people miss the entire point. They think spiritual mastery is about avoiding pain, about staying high vibe at all times, about avoiding anything that feels heavy. But that's not mastery. That's bypassing. Mastery is standing face to face with your shadow and realizing it's not your enemy, it's your unlived power. The parts of you that hurt the most, those are the parts with the most energy trapped inside. That's the secret to transmutation. You don't destroy the shadow, you flip it. You extract the energy from it and use it to become more whole, more embodied, more awake. Imagine fear like a wave crashing toward you. Most people try to resist it, get out of its way, pretend it's not there. But resistance doesn't stop the wave, it just drowns you. What happens when, instead, you dive into the wave, move with it, and use its momentum to push you forward? That's polarity flipping. That's using the energy of fear to generate forward motion. That's how transformation actually happens. Because energy never dies, it only changes form. Fear doesn't vanish by ignoring it. It transmutes when you look at it, feel it, and reclaim the energy underneath it. That trembling in your chest, that tightness in your gut, that's your nervous system flooding with raw electricity. You can shut it down and call it anxiety, or you can channel it and call it activation. One leads to paralysis, the other leads to evolution. This applies to everything. Heartbreak, that's love redirected. Betrayal, that's truth demanding a louder voice. Rage, that's your boundary trying to resurrect itself. These aren't mistakes in your journey. They're catalysts. And when you flip them, you reclaim every part of your scattered power. This is why true alchemy doesn't happen through denial. It happens through digestion. You take the raw, uncomfortable material life hands you, and instead of pushing it away, you absorb it. You learn from it. You hold it long enough to extract its lesson. Then you flip it, and in that moment, the victim becomes the creator. The wound becomes the wisdom. The fear becomes the fire. This is what the mystics knew, that all darkness is unreal in itself. It's only the absence of integrated light. That shadow is only light that hasn't been claimed. And that once you bring your awareness into the space of polarity, it collapses the illusion of opposition. You stop seeing life as a struggle between two forces. You see that all forces are just one energy, rising, falling, contracting, expanding. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Where are you being pulled between extremes? Where are you caught in the illusion of either or? Maybe you believe you're either strong or soft, safe or free, logical or intuitive. But polarity says you are both. You are the tension point where opposites meet. You are the midpoint on every spectrum. And the moment you embrace both ends, you become unshakable. This is why polarity is not a prison, it's a path. It shows you where your growth lives. Wherever you feel triggered, reactive, or unstable, that's where polarity is inviting you to grow. Not by choosing one side, but by holding both. By learning to live in the center of the storm without losing your axis. That's where true power lives, Reno C. Not in choosing light over dark, but in integrating both and transcending the illusion that you ever had to choose. And if you want to shift your life, start by locating your polarities. Notice where you swing. Do you move between overgiving and resentment? Between control and chaos? Between isolation and codependency? These are not flaws. These are signals. They show you exactly where energy is waiting to be harmonized, not eliminated, harmonized. You were not meant to live at one end of any spectrum. You were meant to flow across it, to ride the wave, to understand the rhythm. That's what spiritual maturity looks like. Not constant positivity, but emotional fluency. The ability to hold grief without drowning, joy without grasping, rage without destruction, and love without attachment. This is how you master duality instead of being mastered by it. You stop labeling parts of yourself as good or bad. You stop splitting your psyche into acceptable and unacceptable. You realize the villain in your story was always your unclaimed power in disguise, and when you reclaim it, when you flip it, you stop being the character and start becoming the author. So the next time you feel something heavy, don't run. Don't label it as negative. Ask it what it's trying to show you. Ask what frequency it's hiding. Then meet it, move into it, and flip it. Because every wound holds wisdom. Every trigger points to transformation. Every polarity is a portal. And when you understand that, nothing is against you. Everything is for your becoming. You just have to see beyond the illusion of opposition and step into the wholeness that was waiting underneath all along. Nothing stays still. Nothing stays the same. In nature, in your life, in your emotions, everything moves according to rhythm. It rises and falls, expands and contracts, grows and withers, begins and ends. This is not a flaw, it's a law. The law of rhythm governs all movement in the universe. Every tide, every heartbeat, every breath, every planetary orbit, every success and every downfall is part of a rhythmic flow. If you don't understand this, you will live your life constantly confused by the seasons of change. One day you feel invincible, the next day empty. One year you're thriving, the next you're in survival mode. It seems random, chaotic, but it's not. It's rhythmic. The law of rhythm reveals that everything swings like a pendulum. The further it swings in one direction, the further it must swing back in the opposite. Highs and lows, action and rest, expansion and contraction, joy and sorrow. These are not signs of failure, they're signs of motion. The universe moves in waves, not straight lines. And if you expect your life to always rise, always accelerate, always stay stable, you're asking for pain. Because the pain doesn't come from the rhythm itself, it comes from resisting it. Most people have no idea they're riding this pendulum unconsciously. They mistake rhythm for identity. When they're in a high season, things are working, money is flowing, relationships feel aligned, they attach their self-worth to it. They think, I'm doing something right. And then when the pendulum swings, the clients disappear, the energy drops, the progress slows, they collapse into fear, assuming something's gone wrong. They start overthinking, panicking, grasping at control. But in truth, nothing's wrong. They're just in the opposite phase of the swing. And because they don't recognize the rhythm, they sabotage it. The same cycle keeps repeating. Highs followed by crashes, wins followed by self-doubt, inspiration followed by burnout. Not because they're weak or flawed, but because they haven't learned how to rise above the rhythm. They don't know how to stabilize their inner state when the external world begins to contract. So they let the pendulum dictate their identity, their decisions, their emotions. They become a puppet to the swing. But here's the truth. Rhythm is predictable. It's measurable. You can feel it in your body, in your business, in your moods, in your relationships. And once you see the pattern, you can stop reacting to it. You can start responding with power. You can pause. You can pivot. You can move with rhythm without being moved by it. Think of the seasons. Spring is a time of birth, new energy, ideas blossoming, momentum building. Summer is expansion, long days, full force, expression, and abundance. Fall is release, a shedding of what's no longer needed, a return to simplicity. Winter is retreat, quiet, restoration, inner vision. These seasons don't fight each other. They flow into each other, and every human being goes through the same cycles, energetically, emotionally, spiritually. But most people are only comfortable with spring and summer. They fear fall. They resist winter, and so when those seasons come, they panic and try to force their way back into expansion. That's when rhythm punishes them. You weren't meant to always be producing. You weren't designed to always be visible, always be inspired, always be in motion. There is sacred power in the stillness of winter. There is profound alchemy in the letting go of fall. But if you reject those seasons, you rob yourself of the very transformation they're trying to bring. You stunt your growth by clinging to momentum. You burn out your nervous system by pretending you're a machine. The rhythm exists to restore balance. If you expend too much energy in one direction, it must return. If you rush too far ahead without grounding, you will be pulled back. Not as punishment, but as recalibration. The pendulum swing is only a threat when you forget you're not the pendulum. You're the awareness behind it. You're the center point. And that center point can stay calm, grounded, and sovereign, even as life swings from one extreme to another. So how do you rise above the rhythm? First, you must stop judging the swing. When life slows down, when things fall away, when nothing seems to be moving, don't label it wrong. Don't assume you've failed. Ask instead, what is this phase teaching me? What am I being invited to shed, to rest, to reimagine? That pause isn't a punishment, it's a reset. And if you honor it, the next rise will be even stronger. Second, you must learn to observe your emotional cycles. You have patterns, rhythms of mood, energy, clarity, confidence. Track them, study them. Don't just wait for breakdowns to happen. Don't start noticing when they tend to come. Is there a monthly dip, a seasonal shift? A cycle that shows up every time you launch, expand, or stretch beyond your comfort zone? Once you identify your rhythm, you can work with it instead of against it. You can prepare for the contraction instead of being surprised by it. Third, you must create inner rituals that anchor you to the center point. Breathwork, stillness, journaling, movement, sacred rest. These are not luxuries, they're lifelines. They keep you connected to your internal power even when everything external feels unstable. The more anchored you are inside, the less the pendulum can toss you around. The more you honor your rhythm, the less dramatic the swings become. And finally, you must stop comparing your season to someone else's. What looks like expansion for them might be contraction for you. What looks like rest for you might look like laziness to someone still trapped in the illusion of constant motion. Don't let their rhythm override your own. You are not here to live on anyone else's timeline. You are here to master your own. Some of the most powerful transformations happen in the invisible seasons, when nothing is happening on the surface, when everything feels still, uncertain, quiet. That is where roots are deepening. That is where nervous systems are recalibrating. That is where vision returns. But if you force yourself to bloom when your soul needs to rest, you will drain your energy and destroy your rhythm. And rhythm, when honored, is the most loyal force in the universe. It will always bring you back to movement, to light, to inspiration, to abundance. The contraction always makes way for the expansion. The fall always makes room for new spring. The winter is never the end. It is the sacred beginning in disguise. So let yourself ride the rhythm without losing yourself to it. Let yourself pause without panic. Let yourself rest without guilt. Let yourself fall inward so you can rise outward with even more clarity, strength, and power. Because once you master rhythm, life no longer controls you. You control how you move through life. You become like the ocean, wild, alive, and still in rhythm with the moon. You don't resist the tides, you rise and fall with them. And in doing so, you transcend the illusion of loss. You realize nothing is ever truly gone. It's just dancing to the music of the universe, waiting for you to find your center and join in. There are no accidents. That moment you met the right person at the perfect time. That moment, everything collapsed in one day. That strange recurring pattern in your life you can't explain but can't seem to escape. None of it is random. Nothing in this universe functions by chance. Everything follows a law. And the law of cause and effect is one of the most exacting, uncompromising, and revealing of them all. You are living in a reality that mirrors your thoughts, beliefs, and choices with terrifying precision. Not to punish you, but to reflect you, because every cause sends out a ripple, and every ripple returns home. But that's not what you've been told. You've been sold the myth of randomness, that life is a game of luck, that some people just get lucky breaks while others suffer for no reason, that blessings and misfortunes fall from the sky arbitrarily. But look closer. There is a thread beneath it all. A web of actions, intentions, beliefs, and frequencies that interact with the universe like code. And once you understand this law, you can either use it consciously or be ruled by it unconsciously. There is no neutral ground. Cause and effect is not superstition. It's not about punishment for bad behavior or rewards for virtue. That's moralism. This is mechanics. When you think a thought, it activates a frequency. When you hold that thought with emotion, it becomes a command. That command is broadcast into the field of consciousness. And that field, indifferent, intelligent, precise, responds by reorganizing matter, people, and circumstances around you to reflect it back. You're not just walking through reality. You're programming it as you go. Most of the time, you just don't realize you're doing it. Your life, as it is right now, is the cumulative result of countless subtle causes. Most of them invisible. Most of them happening not in your conscious decisions, but in your emotional reactions, in your assumptions, in the beliefs you inherited and never examined. That's where the real causes live, not in what you consciously hope for, but in what you unconsciously expect. Let's break it down. A single fearful thought, if held long enough, becomes a pattern. That pattern becomes a filter. That filter shapes how you interpret events. And your interpretation becomes your reality. If you believe people can't be trusted, you will unconsciously gravitate toward relationships that confirm your belief. If you believe money is hard to come by, you will overlook opportunities and sabotage your abundance without even realizing you're doing it. Not because life is unfair, but because the law is fair, too fair. It gives you what matches your internal state, not your wishes, not your affirmations, but your frequency. This is the real difference between karma and randomness. Karma isn't some cosmic punishment system. It's not a scoreboard. It's cause and effect in motion. It's the natural return of the energy you've set into motion, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Karma means that nothing is lost. Every energetic imprint echoes. Every act, every thought, every intention sends a vibration through the matrix of reality. And that vibration must return. It's not a question of if, only when and how. Most people confuse this with fate. They say things like, well, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. But that's not how this works. Fate implies passivity. The law of cause and effect demands participation. You are not here to wait for life to unfold. You are here to unfold it. Every moment, you are either planting seeds of alignment or misalignment. Seeds of clarity or confusion, seeds of sovereignty or victimhood. And the harvest is not personal, it's mathematical. Now ask yourself, are you living at cause or are you living at effect? Are you the creator of your experience or the reactor? Because the moment you stop creating intentionally, you start reacting unconsciously, and in that moment, you give up the throne of your own mind. You become a puppet of external circumstances, not because they're more powerful than you, but because you forgot where power lives. When you live at effect, life always seems unfair. Things just happen to you. You feel like you're constantly catching up, constantly fixing, constantly bracing for what comes next. But all of that is the experience of someone who has forgotten their role as the first mover. Reacting is the fastest way to become disempowered. Every time you react from fear, you feed the cause that will birth more fear. Every time you react from anger, you reinforce the vibration that attracts more anger-inducing situations. Not because you're broken, not because you're cursed, but because your reactions are setting new causes into motion. And those causes don't care about your intentions, they care about your energy, your signal, your tone. But here's the power. You can interrupt the pattern. You can stop reacting and start choosing. You can trace the effect back to its root cause and ask, where did this begin? What thought, belief, or feeling activated this? And when you find it, you can change it. You can install a new cause, a new frequency, a new expectation. And when you do, the law must obey. It has no choice. It must echo back the new cause you've broadcasted. But don't mistake surface-level change for true shift. You can't just change your behavior and expect different outcomes. That's cosmetic. The universe responds to vibration, not appearance. You can fake positivity all day long, but if your core frequency is still anchored in lack, fear, or resentment, the results will match the core, not the mask. That's why you have to go deeper. You have to find the hidden programs you're still running, the ones you inherited from your parents, your culture, your past wounds, and you have to rewrite them. This takes courage. It takes honesty. It means you stop blaming life, stop blaming others, stop blaming timing or fate or God. Not because you're guilty, but because you're powerful. And power means responsibility. The moment you accept that every outcome in your life has a root cause in you, even the painful ones, you reclaim your authority. You stop waiting. You start choosing. This is where the shift happens. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What was I sending out that invited this in?" That question alone will change your entire reality. It pulls you out of the illusion of chaos and plugs you back into the architecture of creation. It reminds you that nothing in your life is disconnected, that even your delays are data, even your failures are feedback, even your heartbreaks are recalibrations. Not random, not meaningless, just consequences of causes you may not have realized you were setting into motion. So now the choice is yours. You can live at the mercy of unseen forces, calling it chance, blaming it on timing, drowning in confusion, or you can become the force. You can rise to the level of awareness where every thought becomes sacred, every intention becomes potent, and every action becomes aligned. You can become the cause of your next chapter, not the effect of your last one. This is the path of conscious creation. It doesn't begin with luck. It begins with clarity. It begins with the radical realization that your life is not happening by default, it's happening by design. And you are the one designing it. With your focus, with your energy, with your choices, every moment, cause and effect, always. There is a truth embedded in every ancient temple, every sacred text, every mystical tradition the world has ever known. Everything that exists was born from the marriage of opposites. Every breath, every thought, every creation is the result of two distinct forces working in harmony, the masculine and the feminine. These are not genders in the way society has taught you. They are not labels based on biology or roles. They are principles of energy, polar forces of consciousness that live within you, within nature, and within the universe itself. And whether you realize it or not, they are shaping your reality right now. The law of gender is not about male and female. It is about creation itself. It reveals that everything in existence contains both masculine and feminine energy. Everything. The stars, the atoms, the soil, your mind, your emotions, your dreams, all of it flows through this sacred polarity. The masculine is focused, linear, structured, assertive. It gives, directs, penetrates. It is the part of you that acts, decides, and initiates. The feminine is fluid, cyclical, receptive, nurturing. It receives, feels, imagines, and allows. It is the part of you that senses, dreams, creates from the unseen. Neither is superior, neither is complete without the other. Creation requires both. And yet, most people live their lives in imbalance. Some are trapped in their inner masculine, always pushing, doing, controlling, achieving. They've been conditioned to believe that rest is laziness, that softness is weakness, that emotion is irrelevant. So they disconnect from their feminine, and their life becomes rigid, exhausted, and disconnected from deeper meaning. Others are stuck in their inner feminine, always dreaming, feeling, surrendering, waiting. They've been taught that ambition is aggression, that structure is oppression, that action is dangerous. So they abandon their masculine, and their life becomes chaotic, passive, and ungrounded. You've probably felt both sides of this imbalance in your own life. The times when you were burned out from doing too much and ignoring your intuition. Or the times when you felt emotionally overwhelmed, paralyzed by indecision, unable to move forward. These are not flaws in your character, they are symptoms of energetic dissonance, a signal that your inner masculine and feminine are out of sync, and when those forces are not aligned, creation becomes distorted, manifestation becomes inconsistent. Life feels either overpowered or undernourished. To create in this universe, PUST, truly create, not just chase results or repeat patterns, you must harmonize these inner energies. You must become whole. Imagine your mind as a sacred temple. The masculine principle is the architect, ATT. It provides the blueprint, the structure, the intention. The feminine principle is the artist, ATT. It brings color, depth, flow, and magic to the form. Without the architect, the creation has no direction. Without the artist, it has no soul. Together, they produce something divine. This dynamic lives inside your own psyche. Your masculine energy sets the vision, holds the goal, and takes bold steps toward it. Your feminine energy opens to inspiration, receives intuitive guidance, and nurtures the dream into being. When the two work together, you become a channel for miracles. You stop forcing, you stop drifting. You begin to flow with power and purpose. But this harmony doesn't happen by accident. You have to consciously cultivate it. First, you must recognize which energy dominates your life right now. Are you constantly pushing, achieving, and micromanaging without ever stopping to listen? That's overactive masculine. Are you always waiting for signs, feeling things deeply, but rarely following through? That's overactive feminine. Neither is wrong, but both require balance. When your inner masculine is healthy, you feel grounded. You can hold boundaries, make decisions, and move forward with clarity. You don't need to control everything. You lead from presence, not fear. When your inner feminine is healthy, you feel connected. You trust your inner voice, allow space for reflection, and welcome the unknown. You don't collapse under pressure, you flow with the rhythm of life. When these two forces are aligned, something incredible happens. You stop chasing what you want, you become what you want. You embody the vibration of wholeness, and the universe responds accordingly. In the world around you, this imbalance plays out on a massive scale. Most of modern society has been built on wounded masculine energy, IMA, domination, extraction, productivity at all costs. It celebrates hustle, control, hierarchy, and intellectual superiority. And, in doing so, it suppresses the feminine, IIS, intuition, empathy, rest, emotional wisdom. This isn't just hurting women, it's hurting everyone. Men, women, and non-binary people alike have been conditioned to devalue the feminine within themselves. As a result, we see systems that are spiritually empty, disconnected from nature, and devoid of soul. But this is changing. You can feel it. The rise of emotional awareness, spiritual awakening, and embodiment practices are all signs that the feminine is returning. Not to replace the masculine, but to restore the balance. And your personal life is part of this shift. Every time you slow down to breathe, every time you honor your feelings, every time you act from love instead of fear, you are rebalancing the field. So how do you bring your inner masculine and feminine into union? Start by listening. Sit with yourself. Feel where the imbalance lives. Are you afraid to act because you don't trust your vision? Then strengthen your masculine. Are you stuck in constant movement because you're afraid to feel? Then nurture your feminine. Create rituals that activate both. Let your feminine dream the vision. Let your masculine structure the plan. Let your feminine receive the inspiration. Let your masculine take the step. Let your feminine feel the process. Let your masculine hold the goal. This is sacred dance. And it is through this dance that you manifest. This is not about gender roles. This is not about labels. This is about energy, about wholeness, about becoming the union that births worlds. The law of gender is the final law because it is the final key. It is the point at which thought becomes form, where idea meets action, where spirit meets flesh. It is the moment of divine conception within you, and the more you honor both forces within, the more powerful your creations become. You are not just a thinker or a doer. You are not just a feeler or a builder. You are the vessel for union. You are the bridge between heaven and earth. And when you learn to embody both the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, you don't just manifest things, you become the living embodiment of creation itself, balanced, whole, sovereign, complete. What if I told you the 7 Hermetic laws aren't the ceiling, but the floor? That they weren't designed to define your limits, but to reveal your levers? Most people study these laws like commandments, like unbreakable truths, meant to explain why life happens the way it does. But there's a secret embedded inside them, one that only emerges when you look beyond the surface. That secret is the 8th law, the hidden principle behind all others, the law of transmutation, and it changes everything. Because once you understand it, you realize these laws are not meant to trap you inside a rigid system. They're not just descriptive. They're not just observations of how energy works. They are tools, mechanical instruments of reality-shaping precision. Each one is an access point, a handle, a mechanism you can grab hold of and use to shift your experience. The laws aren't there to bind you, they're there to empower you, and transmutation is how you do it. Nothing in this universe is fixed, nothing, not your mood, not your circumstances, not your frequency, not even your story. The idea that you're stuck, broken, cursed, or limited is not a fact, it's a vibration, and vibrations can be changed. That's the essence of transmutation. It's the process of taking one energetic state and converting it into another, not by escaping it, not by pretending it's not there, but by working with it, metabolizing it, digesting it, flipping it. Like emotional alchemy, you've already felt this instinct inside you. Think about those moments when you turned heartbreak into art, when you took rejection and used it as fuel, when you transformed grief into a new chapter, or loneliness into self-discovery. That wasn't a coincidence. That was transmutation in action. You didn't just survive the pain. You used it. You restructured it. You took the energy of one state and redirected it into another outcome. That's the secret. Everything is energy. And energy is always in motion. The only question is, are you moving it consciously or unconsciously? Are you transmuting your patterns or recycling them? Most people don't realize they're recycling old frequencies on autopilot. They feel stuck, but what they're really doing is reliving unprocessed energy, replaying the same thoughts, emotions, and beliefs because they've never learned how to shift their internal state. Transmutation begins with awareness. You can't change what you don't witness, so you start by noticing, not judging, your current frequency. What are you feeling? What story are you telling? What belief are you vibrating with right now? That story becomes your field, that feeling becomes your signal, and that signal pulls reality toward you like a magnet. You can't outthink your frequency, you have to change it at the root. That's where the alchemy begins. Alchemy isn't about gold, it's about transformation. It's about taking the dense, the heavy, the unconscious parts of yourself and refining them into something higher. Not by force, not by shame, but by shifting how you see, how you interpret, how you respond. Your perception is the crucible. When you look at your experience through a new lens, you change its energetic structure. You literally alter the way the pattern behaves in your field. Let's say you're feeling fear. Most people would try to run from it, distract themselves, or numb it. But transmutation asks a different question. What is the fear trying to protect? What does it believe it's guarding? What gift is hiding underneath it? When you ask that, fear stops being a block and becomes a doorway. You're not denying the emotion, you're using it. You're shifting it into insight, into clarity, into momentum. You're not stuck in fear anymore. You're riding the current of its energy into a higher form. This is mental alchemy. Well, the ability to convert your inner states at will. And once you realize you can do this, nothing outside of you holds the same power. Because no matter what life throws your way, you know you can transmute it. You know every trigger is a teacher, every shadow holds a tool, and every breakdown carries the seed of a breakthrough. The alchemist doesn't wait for the storm to pass. They learn how to transform the storm into fuel, This is not about denial, it's not about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Real transmutation isn't spiritual bypassing, it's the opposite. It requires that you go deeper into the feeling, into the belief, into the discomfort, expiation, but with the intention to transform, not to suffer. You feel it fully, so you can free it. You witness the pain without identifying with it. You let it pass through you, instead of getting stuck inside you. And as it moves, so do you. When you embody this law, everything becomes malleable. Your past no longer defines you. Your emotions no longer control you. Your story becomes a canvas, not a cage. And suddenly, life stops feeling like something that happens to you. It becomes something you're sculpting from the inside out. Every thought, every breath, every state becomes part of the design. Think about it. If the law of mentalism says all is mind, and the law of vibration says everything moves, then transmutation is the bridge between those truths. It's the practice of choosing the movement. It's the discipline of shifting your thoughts into new frequencies and letting those frequencies reshape your world. That's not magic, that's mechanics, and the universe is built to respond. Transformation isn't a miracle. It's a choice. You don't have to wait for the right time, the right person, the right opportunity. You don't need to be more healed, more prepared, more spiritual. You only need to decide, to choose a new state, and the moment you do, the laws go to work. Reality begins to reconfigure around your new signal. But you have to hold the frequency long enough for it to take root. Most people shift for a moment, then fall back into their old energy because they're addicted to familiarity. But transmutation requires a sustained signal. You have to stay in the new vibration until it becomes your default. That's how timelines shift, not with effort, but with consistency, with coherence. You've always had this ability. You've just been trained to forget. You were taught that change is slow, that healing takes years, that who you are is fixed. But that's a lie. Nothing is static. Not your energy, not your personality, not your path. You are in constant motion. And the law of transmutation is the proof. So now the question becomes, what do you want to become? Not what do you want to have, not what do you want to achieve, who do you want to be, vibrationally, emotionally, energetically? Because once you decide that, and hold it, and live it, the external has no choice but to align. You're not waiting on the universe is waiting on you, waiting for you to flip the switch, to step into the next version of your frequency, to transmute the weight you've carried into wings. And when you do that, life changes, not because it has to, but because it must. It's law. They don't need chains to keep you controlled. They don't need cages, whips, or armed guards. All they need is your unawareness. Your ignorance of the laws that are already shaping your life without your consent. Because once you forget how power really works, once you stop seeing the invisible mechanics of reality, you become easy to manage. Easy to provoke, easy to sell, distract, divide, and extract. That's how control works now. Not through force, but through frequency. Not through violence, but through illusion. The laws of the universe were never meant to be secrets. They were written into nature, into the stars, into your very body. They are the original architecture of reality, mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. Each one is neutral, eternal, and exact. But the truth is, just like fire can be used to warm your home or burn it to the ground, these laws can either liberate or enslave. And, when used against you, subtly, systematically, they can trap your mind in a prison you never even see. Let's start with the first and most critical, the law of mentalism. All is mind, reality is mental, thought shapes form. This means that your perception is the foundation of everything you experience. So, what happens when someone else programs your perception before you're old enough to understand how it works? What happens when you're fed a carefully constructed narrative from the moment you're born, through television, textbooks, religious dogma, advertising, and culture, all designed to keep your imagination small, your fear high, and your authority external? You become a product of someone else's thought field. Your inner world gets hijacked. Your sense of what's possible, desirable, or dangerous is no longer your own. And once they own your thoughts, they own your world. Media is the main weapon here. Constant images of lack, violence, division, and doom are broadcast 24/7. Not because the world is falling apart, but because your mind, once flooded with fear, becomes highly programmable. When you are afraid, you do not think clearly. Your critical faculties shut down. You seek protection, not truth. And the source of that protection, the institutions, figures, and systems that claim to save you, are often the same ones generating the fear in the first place. This is not an accident. It is the strategic use of mentalism against you. Now, look at the law of rhythm. Everything moves in cycles, expansion and contraction, high and low. The universe breathes, but what happens when you are never allowed to rest in your natural rhythm? When you're pushed to always be productive, always be connected, always be available, always be reacting, you lose connection to your own energetic flow. You no longer know when to pause, reflect, or retreat. Instead, you are caught in manufactured cycles, economic booms and busts, political chaos and calm, social outrage and distraction, each one designed to keep your nervous system on edge and your awareness externally focused. The rhythm is real, but now it's being manipulated. Synthetic highs, artificial crises, engineered breakdowns, not to awaken you, but to exhaust you. Fear is the ultimate rhythm disruptor. If you are afraid, you cannot align with your true frequency. You begin to look outside yourself for answers, safety, validation. And while you're doing that, your vibration plummets. Which brings us to the law of vibration. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are, not consciously, but vibrationally. So what happens when you've been trained to vibrate at the frequency of shame, guilt, scarcity, and division? You manifest experiences that confirm those frequencies. You draw in relationships that reinforce your wounds. You chase money, love, or status from a place of not enoughness. And because of that, nothing sticks, nothing satisfies. You are kept on a treadmill of consumption and comparison, trying to change your outer world, while your inner vibration is still running a program you didn't choose. The system wants you vibrating low. That's where you're most profitable. That's where you're most compliant. That's where you're most addicted, distracted, afraid, and dependent. High vibration people do not follow orders. They do not live in fear. They do not buy into the manufactured urgency of media cycles or the hollow promises of systems designed to extract. So instead of teaching you how to raise your vibration, they convince you that vibration isn't real. That energy is just a woo-woo word. That emotion is weakness. That sensitivity is a liability. Also, you stay disconnected from the very field that creates your life. Then comes the law of polarity. Everything has its opposite. Light and dark, truth and illusion. But instead of teaching you how to integrate opposites, how to transcend duality by seeing both sides as part of a whole, you are trained to pick a side, left or right, good or evil, us versus them. They weaponize polarity. They use it to divide, inflame, and control. If you hate the other side, you will never question the puppet master pulling the strings of both. If you are caught in reactive identity, you are easy to manipulate. They create false binaries, artificial conflict, tribal thinking, all designed to keep you emotionally charged and mentally asleep. You don't even realize the law is being used against you. That's the genius of it. You think you're making free choices. You think your beliefs are yours. But most of them were installed through repetition, trauma, social pressure, and strategic programming. You are reacting to rhythms you didn't design. You are believing thoughts you didn't generate. You are vibrating at frequencies you never agreed to. And all the while, your life, your relationships, your finances, your health, your dreams, is being shaped by laws you were never taught, working silently in the background like the code of a simulation. And still, they mock the idea of universal laws. They ridicule the ancient teachings. They label it pseudoscience or conspiracy, while using those same exact laws in marketing, politics, religion, and control. Watch how advertising manipulates vibration. Watch how politics manipulates rhythm and polarity. Watch how media manipulates mentalism and mass thought. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. But the most dangerous part of this manipulation isn't the external systems. It's the internalized ones. The stories you now tell yourself, the fear you now feel, the self-doubt you carry like it's truth. Because the moment you accept those programs as who you are, instead of what was done to you, you become your own captor. That's how they trap you. Not with visible chains, but with unconscious consent, with thoughts that don't feel foreign, with rhythms that feel normal, with vibrations that feel like home, even when they hurt. You build a life inside a cage made of your own frequency. But once you become aware of how these laws are being used, once you recognize the spell, you can break it. You can stop reacting to the rhythm and start mastering it. You can stop echoing the thoughts they fed you and start broadcasting your own. You can stop being pulled into polarity and start holding the whole. You can reclaim your frequency, not with force, but with awareness. And awareness is the beginning of freedom. It's easy to believe you need something outside of you to finally change your life, that the key lies in some ritual you haven't tried yet, some book you haven't read, some guru you haven't found. You've been taught to wait for permission, seize, from a system, from a teacher, from the stars, but you don't need any of that. You don't need luck. You don't need someone to hand you the formula. You already have it. It's coded into the laws that govern this reality, the same laws that have been hidden in plain sight for generations, the ones that don't just describe your reality, 19, they let you rewrite it. All you need is alignment, not effort, not hustle, alignment. But alignment doesn't come through force, it comes through clarity, through tuning your inner state to match the version of reality you actually want to experience. And to do that, you need a process. Not a complicated one, just a clear one. It starts with awareness. You can't change what you're unwilling to see. So the first step is noticing. Noticing your patterns, your thoughts, your emotional reflexes. Noticing the way you talk to yourself, the beliefs you defend, the stories you keep repeating even though they keep you small. Most people live in reaction mode, completely unaware that every reaction is a reinforcement of an old vibration. But the moment you become aware, you create space, and in that space, you reclaim your power. Awareness is the gateway, but observation is what keeps it open. Observation is the practice of watching your inner world without judgment, like a scientist watching a lab experiment. When you feel triggered, instead of spiraling, you observe. When fear rises, you don't run, you observe it. You study its shape, its voice, its origin. This is where most people get stuck. They confuse observation with analysis. They try to dissect their emotions, fix them, solve them. But you don't need to solve a storm. You need to let it pass through and learn what it came to teach. Observation allows you to hold space for your energy without becoming it. And that is the beginning of freedom. Once you've observed the pattern, you get to choose. This is the pivotal moment. Most people don't realize they have this power. They think their thoughts and emotions are facts, but they're not. They're frequencies. They're states of being. And states can be changed. You can choose to shift. You can choose to release a thought that doesn't serve you. You can choose to feel something new, even if your external reality hasn't caught up yet. This is where your will comes in, not to force change, but to guide it. When you make a new choice, you initiate a frequency shift. That's the final stage, the shift. This is where you consciously align with the new state of being, not by pretending, not by faking it, but by embodying the energy of the version of you who already lives the life you want. What does that version of you believe? How do they speak to themselves? How do they walk, breathe, make decisions? You don't wait to become that version. You align with it now. And the moment your inner state matches the frequency of the reality you desire, the laws of the universe begin to echo that signal. Let's make this real. There was a man I once knew, quiet, thoughtful, mid-30s. On the surface, he had it all. A good job, a stable income, a family. But underneath, he was suffocating. He carried a deep fear that no matter what he did, it would never be enough. He was haunted by the need to prove his worth. So he overworked, overgave, overperformed, all while feeling invisible in his own life. He had read about manifestation, tried affirmations, even experimented with meditation, but nothing shifted. Because deep down, his frequency was still anchored in lack. He hadn't made the internal pivot. One night, everything cracked open. He was passed over for a promotion that he had been promised for months. Someone else got the role. And he broke. Not because of the job, but because it confirmed the story he had been carrying his whole life, that he wasn't truly seen, that he didn't matter, that life would always reward someone else. But instead of collapsing into the story, something different happened. He paused. He watched his reaction. He noticed the old narrative rising up, the shame, the anger, the despair. And for the first time, he didn't believe it. He observed it. He recognized it not as truth, but as energy. And in that moment, he made a choice. He asked himself, what if I no longer vibrate at this frequency? Not just in theory, not just in wishful thinking, but in practice. What if he chose to believe that he was worthy now, not because of performance, but because of presence? What if he let go of the need to prove, and simply aligned with the version of himself who already knew his value? He began to shift, subtly at first. He stopped volunteering for things that drained him. He started speaking with more clarity, more certainty. He stopped apologizing for existing. His posture changed, his voice deepened. His energy recalibrated, and within months, reality adjusted. A new opportunity appeared from a completely different source, one that matched his new vibration. Higher pay, better environment, and most importantly, no begging for validation. That wasn't luck. That was alignment. That was cause and effect in action. That was the visible result of an invisible shift. And that's what happens when you use the laws, not as philosophy, but as practice. You don't need to wait for the right moment. The laws don't respond to timing. They respond to energy, to intention, to clarity. You could decide right now that you're done living at the mercy of the past. You could choose to pivot into a new identity. And you wouldn't need anyone's permission. The laws don't belong to the elite. They don't require rituals or rare knowledge. They respond to your vibration. They are ancient, yes, but they're also immediate. Right now, they are responding to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your choices. That's how powerful you are. Not someday, now. So how do you break free? You break the loop. You stop reacting to life, and you start designing it. You move from unconscious repetition to conscious creation. You align your internal world so clearly that your external world has no choice but to adjust. It has to. That's the law. This isn't magic. It's mastery. And it starts with a simple question. What am I broadcasting right now? Not, what do I want? What am I actually vibrating? That question changes everything. Because when you get honest about the signal you're sending, you get access to the power to change it. And when you change it, life doesn't stay the same. The future isn't written. It's tuned. And the pen isn't in someone else's hand. It's in your frequency, your choice, your willingness to pivot, right here, right now. You were never meant to know this, not because the truth isn't available, but because the systems around you were designed to keep you looking everywhere but within. From the moment you were born, you were taught how to obey, how to conform, how to fit inside boxes that were built long before you got here. You were told what to believe, what to fear, what success looks like, what failure means. You were told that life is something that happens to you, not something you create. That your mind is just a receiver, not a transmitter. That your body is separate from spirit, that your energy doesn't matter, that your imagination is fantasy, that your emotions are irrational. You were trained to forget, because a person who truly understands these laws cannot be controlled. They cannot be manipulated by fear, shamed into submission, or coerced into compliance. They don't need validation, permission, or approval. They become sovereign, and sovereignty is dangerous to any system built on obedience. Look around. Entire industries are built on your disempowerment. Billions are spent making sure you feel not enough, not beautiful enough, not rich enough, not loved enough, not successful enough, because when you feel not enough, you become a consumer, a follower, a cog, and most importantly, you become disconnected from the inner technology that could break the entire illusion, your consciousness. The reason you were never taught these Hermetic laws in school isn't because they're irrelevant, it's because they're too effective. Because once you understand that all is mind, you stop blaming the world and start rewriting the script from within. Once you realize your vibration creates your experience, you stop chasing and start aligning. Once you understand rhythm, polarity, and cause, you stop fearing change. You stop playing small. You stop living like a victim of circumstance. They don't want you to know that reality is not fixed, it's fluid. That the version of yourself you see in the mirror today is not the limit of who you are. That every belief, every thought pattern, every emotional loop can be uninstalled and reprogrammed. That your past doesn't define you, that your trauma doesn't own you. That you are not your story, you are the storyteller. You are the frequency, the field, the dreamer of the dream. But if you knew that, if you truly embodied that, you would no longer need them. You wouldn't need their products to feel worthy. You wouldn't need their approval to feel safe. You wouldn't need their systems to define your purpose. You'd be free. And free people are harder to govern, harder to predict, harder to sell, harder to shame. So instead, you were given distractions, tests, grades, rules, celebrities, trends, news cycles, and always just enough fear to keep your nervous system on edge. Always just enough division to make you forget that we are all mirrors. Always just enough pressure to keep you grinding, hustling, surviving, too busy to ask the deeper questions. Too drained to feel your own power. But no matter how far you drifted, no matter how long you were asleep, the truth never left you. It lived in the whispers of your intuition, in the ache you couldn't explain, in the dreams that never died, in the synchronicities you wrote off as coincidence, in the moments of stillness where something ancient stirred. That was the truth, calling you back to yourself. The laws of the universe were never hidden, they were just buried beneath a mountain of noise. And here you are, remembering. That remembering is not an accident, it's a signal, a crack in the program. And the moment you start seeing the patterns, the way your thoughts have shaped your path, the way your energy attracts certain people, the way life reflects your internal state with eerie precision, the moment you start connecting those dots, everything changes. You no longer see events as random, you see rhythm. You no longer see obstacles as punishment. You see polarity. You no longer see people as enemies. You see mirrors. And that shift, reaction to awareness, is the beginning of sovereignty. To be sovereign doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you trust your own ability to tune into truth. It means you stop outsourcing your authority. You stop waiting for a savior. You stop handing your power to gurus, institutions, or systems. You remember that everything you need is within you. The mind to shape thought, the heart to hold frequency, the intuition to navigate, the will to act. You don't have to have a perfect past. You don't need years of training. You don't need to renounce the world or climb a mountain to find a master. You simply need to reclaim what was always yours, the right to choose your vibration, to create your reality, to live as the multidimensional being you truly are. You've made mistakes. So has everyone. You've been lost. You've been manipulated. You've been afraid. But none of that makes you broken. It makes you human. And being human is not a limitation. It's a gateway. Because within this human experience is the full spectrum of consciousness waiting to be awakened. The pain you've endured becomes the fuel for your remembrance. The confusion becomes the soil for clarity. The forgetting becomes the path home. You were never taught these laws because they would have made you too powerful, too clear, too centered. But you're learning them now, and that's all that matters. You're beginning to see that energy is not some abstract concept, it's the core currency of life. You're beginning to feel the truth that your inner state is the cause, and your outer life is the effect. You're beginning to realize that mastery isn't about controlling the world, it's about aligning with the laws that govern it. You don't need to fight the system. You just need to outgrow it. Vibrationally, mentally, emotionally. You don't need to prove your worth. You just need to embody your truth. And in doing so, your very presence becomes a disruption to the program. Your clarity becomes a ripple. Your joy becomes rebellion. Your sovereignty becomes contagious. It's not too late, not for you, not for anyone. As long as you're breathing, the code can be rewritten, the thoughts can be reprogrammed, the trauma can be alchemized, the vibration can be raised. The life you're here to live, the one encoded in your soul, not conditioned by your environment, is still available, waiting to be claimed, not in some distant future, but now. Because now is the only moment that exists. Now is where power lives. And in this now, you are remembering what they hoped you'd never find. You were not born to obey, you were born to awaken. Once you understand how reality actually works, you can never unknow it. You can never go back to pretending life is random, that you're powerless, that you're just another character playing out a script you didn't write. That illusion dies the moment you see the code. And once you've seen it, there's no turning back. You're not just a student of these laws anymore. You are them. You are the mind that shapes form, the vibration that bends reality, the polarity that generates power, the cause behind the effect, the reflection within the mirror. You are the law in motion, and everything in your life is now subject to your awareness. This isn't a metaphor. It's not spiritual poetry. It's activation. You are no longer learning. You are practicing. Everything that happens from this moment forward is either reinforcement of the old or embodiment of the new. The question is, no longer, does this work? The question is, how fully am I living it? The teachings are done. What remains is application, embodiment, alignment, the real work. You don't have to chant mantras to convince the universe of your desires. You are the universe, choosing to express itself as you. You don't have to wait for external proof before you shift your state. The external is your proof, it's your echo, and it's changing the moment you do. You've walked through the 7 laws. You've seen how every force in this reality is not separate from you. It's a mirror of you. And now, something deeper is asked. Not belief, but ownership. Own your frequency. Own your patterns. Own your decisions. Own the way you interpret experience. Because now you know that the power isn't in the condition, it's in your response to it. The power isn't in what happens, it's in how you translate it. Every second, you're giving meaning to life, and that meaning is generating your vibration. That vibration is broadcasting into the field, and that field is shaping the next moment, over and over again. You are at the center, always. You are not chasing your future, you are selecting it. With every thought you allow, every boundary you hold, every story you choose to stop telling, you are not waiting for something new to happen. You are becoming the version of you to whom the new reality already belongs. That's what manifestation really is. Not summoning something from the void, but stepping into alignment with what has always been possible. It was waiting. You weren't. Now you are. From here, you don't argue with mirrors. You don't chase shadows. You don't plead with life to change. You align your frequency and let life follow. You move from victim to vessel, from reactor to generator. You no longer say, I hope this works. You say, this works because I work it. The laws don't fail. We just forget. We forget that we are the mental force shaping the field. We forget that everything is energy, and we are the tuning fork. We forget that what we feel and focus on isn't passive, it's creative. But now you remember, and with remembrance comes responsibility. Because now that you know, every reaction becomes a choice, every thought becomes a signal, every emotion becomes a creation. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't pretend the mirror doesn't exist. You can't keep blaming people, systems, or timing. Not because they didn't play a role, but because your role is the only one you control. You've been handed the keys to the architecture of reality. Use them. This is where most people hesitate. They want the power, but not the responsibility. They want the outcome, but not the discipline. But you can't vibrate in freedom while living in unconsciousness. You can't create intentionally while avoiding inner work. This path demands more from you, and gives more to you. than anything else. It will stretch you, humble you, and liberate you, and every step of it will be shaped by your frequency, not your circumstance. So what now? Now you live it. Now you catch yourself when old stories start to pull you back into victimhood, and you pivot. You notice when your energy slips into lack, and you choose abundance. You observe the thoughts that used to run you, and you interrupt them with truth. You feel the emotions that once owned you, and you transmute them into fuel. You don't wait, you don't beg, you don't explain, you shift. You walk through your life like a conscious emitter of vibration, not in theory, but in practice. You walk into every room like your energy matters, because it does. You treat your inner state like sacred ground, because it is. You use every trigger as a mirror, every challenge as a calibration point, and every desire as a directional compass. You don't follow energy, you lead it. And when life tests you, because it will, you don't collapse, you calibrate. You remember that all contrast is information, that discomfort is just the invitation to refine your frequency, that every setback is a request to realign. You're not here to avoid the storm, you're here to walk through it with clarity, power, and presence, because now you know who you are. You are the law, not above it, not beneath it, embodying it, reflecting it, creating with it. You are the mind of the universe individuated into form. You are the frequency that calls reality into alignment, and when you live from that truth, you don't need proof. Your life becomes the proof. But this truth comes with a warning. Once you've seen the blueprint, you can't pretend you're powerless. Once you've felt the laws move through you, you can't act like you're separate from them. You'll never be able to unknow this. You'll never again be able to blame life without feeling the subtle pull back to your own vibration. This is the edge of initiation. You either rise into full responsibility or you slip back into sleep. But the sleep will never be peaceful again, because you'll always hear the hum of the truth beneath it, asking you to wake up. So the invitation is clear. Live as the cause, not the effect. Walk through your life as the creator, not the character. Speak your truth with the full knowing that your words are not descriptions, they are instructions. Radiate energy not because it looks good, but because it shapes the field. Align not for appearance, but for transformation. You are no longer just learning, you are becoming. This path is not for the faint-hearted, but you didn't come here to play small. You came here to remember, to awaken, to wield the laws of reality as your allies, and you have. Now it's time to live as if that's true. You've crossed the threshold.